Hello Animorphs fans and welcome back to the Animorphs universe. We're looking at episode 2 of the TV series, which is My Name is Jake, part 2. I think the last episode was pretty good. Honestly, I think it was alright, a good start. Will we keep up that momentum in episode 2? Spoiler, not really, but it gets a lot worse from here on out, I can tell you that. Before I get into it, remember that there's an Animorphs Discord. We do book club things there. We discuss Animorphs. We discuss other things. Like recently, there's been a lot of talk about Dragon Ball Z since the inventor? No, the guy who made Dragon Ball died recently. So there's been a lot of talk about that. You know, we cover a lot of that sort of stuff. Gaming, there is a gaming section. Yeah, come along, join other Animorphs fans, have a bit of fun, have a bit of banter. Apart from that, please do consider joining this channel as a member. If you do, you get content early access. Bang! And that means that you would have been able to see this video like at least a week in advance. Quicker than anybody else. You'd have had a great time, I'm sure of it. It's £2 a month, and not only that, but that £2 to me goes immediately to buying the Animorphs audiobooks. So theoretically, you're actually helping Animorphs by joining me at the moment, because I'm using that money to buy the audiobooks, to listen to them, to eventually do a review on them. So you're helping everybody. You help everybody. Everybody is helped. Anyway, less of that. Let's crack on with My Name is Jake Part 2. We open with a scene very similar to the first scene of the first episode. In fact, I think it's pretty much the exact same shot at the start here. Jake is having an inner monologue and he's walking past a variety of people who look suspicious and mysterious. And then he comes across this woman. Now, this woman here is a laugh riot because I can't tell if she's in her 20s or in her 70s. I don't know. She's got like old lady grey hair, but she's got a really young face. And, well, she's got like a 2-year-old daughter. Why do you think, Jake, she's staring at you at the way she's staring at you? If anybody, any bloke of your age were to walk the street like that, look at how close you've gotten and how suspiciously you're staring at this child. Are you honestly surprised that she's giving you that proper Karen look? Is that a Karen look? But why is he surprised that she's looking? She's not a controller, she's just actually rightly aware of her surroundings.
Nice day.
Jake is clearly doing his best not to appear awkward. Moving on. I do get the effects that they're going for in these opening shots. He's glancing at certain people and he's looking very suspicious. Everybody is not to be trusted. And I get it. It's how the book wants you to see things, but it comes across so awkward in these opening scenes that it's actually quite funny. But anyway, moving on, where is Jake actually going? Jake displays the stealthiest of stealth as he tries to infiltrate the construction site where Elfangor landed his ship previously. A mysterious white van pulls out, the contents of which is hazardous, but we never really see anything of that again. Also, Jake doesn't for a second believe that what we assume is controllers would not see him crouching behind this bush. Jake then enters Mission Impossible mode and thinks that by crouching slightly as he runs, he'll be completely hidden from anybody watching. What Jake has done at this point is basically, as an expositional task, he's gone to the construction site to look at the Yerks as they're basically cleaning up the area. So we can only imagine that this is the day after. So the day after Elfangor's ship crash lands, Jake comes here to this construction site and tries to have a look at what exactly the cleanup job entails. But does this not contradict the fact that he went to school and talked to the other Animorphs about it? I'm gonna have a quick look now to see if he's wearing the same clothes. Okay, I didn't actually put this in my notes, but it's confirmed. Jake is wearing the same shirt here in this cafeteria scene as he is here in the construction site. So this probably explains the reason why he was late to the cafeteria, which I actually didn't notice at first, but that's pretty cool. If not explained very well, and it's only the fact that he's wearing the same shirt that makes it obvious. What this doesn't help explain, though, is the Chapman aspect of this. Because if you remember in episode 1, Jake sees Chapman, but it's his shoes that give Chapman away. But then he very clearly sees Chapman at the construction site. Jake then saunters off having seen Chapman. So, actually, this probably means that Jake goes to the construction site after the cafeteria scene, which obviously chronologically works. So my idea that that's why he was late to the cafeteria is actually wrong, even though that's what I thought would have worked best. So the TV series has done nothing but disappoint me in this tangent that I didn't have on my notes. It does make you wonder, actually, why he didn't bring the other animals with him on this little recce. Because he's gone to the cafeteria and told all the other Animorphs about it, told them about Chapman, told them how it's real, and yet he's gone to this construction site alone? It doesn't make too much sense. But let's move on. We then come to Cassie's barn, Cassie's farm barn, and there are far more animals here than there were in the TV series, because if you look closely, there's an elephant in the background. There are loads of animals here, apparently, with Cassie's mother. And showing us an elephant in the background TV series is a mighty cheeky tease, I'll have you know. Because what does Rachel acquire in this series? A monkey? A fly? You've just shown us a bloody elephant and you don't deliver. Shameful. Anyway, I do just want to point out how creepy Tobias is. Remember in the last episode where he was standing with Homer in the construction site looking all creepy? And I suspected it was some sort of really in-depth. An Animorphs fan came into the studio and said, wouldn't it be cool if everything Elfangor was related to came and stood there? You know, Tobias, his son, Homer as a spirit of a Pemalite, who are linked to the Almist, who's linked to the Time Matrix, who's linked to Elfangor, and it all just comes together. But no, apparently it's just this thing where animals just sort of crowd around Tobias. Look at how these goats just circle him. And I also find it quite hilarious how when he notices the goats are there, he jumps as if he doesn't know they were there. Oh, what lovely thoughts I'm having in my head. Oh, goats! Whenceforth did they appear? So Tobias is just this weird kid, and he's just like a magnet to random animals that just get sucked into his into his event horizon. Why? We'll cover more about Tobias in a bit, because it just gets worse for him, honestly. We then get confirmation, again, from Rachel. Tobias has just moved here.
That's Tobias. He just moved here.
This isn't a thing. We discussed this in the last episode, and it was an offhanded comment, but now it's actually in your face. Rachel says, confirmed, Tobias has just moved here. That's not Tobias. And it's another thing I mentioned offhand last episode when looking at this, where I said it was almost like they were turning him into David. And it wasn't a really serious comment. It was sort of offhanded, ad-libbed, and it was just, you know, just a small comparison. But now they're making me even more like David. He's this weird kid who's just moved into town, who doesn't really have a relationship with his parents. They've gone, effectively. And he's just not very trustworthy. As we will see later in this episode, there's actually a big plot point about this episode. But we'll get into that. We'll discuss further later on once we have more evidence in our little evidence drawer. I will say that the barn is perfect. Just the aesthetic of the place, the layout, I think it suits the barn perfectly from the books. It's one of those things that the Animal series did sort of get right. One of the things they didn't get right was this fellow. Bloody Nora, they've gone and got the wrong bird. Isn't the red-tailed hawk... I'm going to research, actually. Most common bird of prey in North America, red-tailed hawks. The red-tailed hawk is not a rare species. So, this iconic... Come on, Adam, words. This iconic bird from the Animorphs TV series, the red-tailed hawk, you couldn't just find someone who has a red-tailed hawk, one of the most common species in North America, you had to go and use a Harris hawk. I mean, who the bloody hell is Harris, and what's he doing in my show? It actually neatly summarises how much they've screwed Tobias in this series. And again, we'll cover that more later in the episode, so let's move on. Cassie's mum then leaves the group alone, including Tobias, who she's just seen being a creep outside with the goats, leaves him alone with this Harris hawk, as do the other Animorphs, who very quickly skulk to the other end of the barn, leaving Tobias on his lonesome. Jake then confirms my suspicions that he visited the construction site after the cafeteria.
I just went by the plant. It's crawling with controllers.
You know, I wouldn't have initially have included this in the video, but I went on that tangent, so I feel I have to, like, talk about that now. That's the problem with being ad-lib, I think you'll find. But you know what? I think it's more fun that way. Do you agree? Rather than this video be a straight line from point A to B, we're going off-piste. We're going out down the back slopes, and occasionally we'll tumble over, but by golly gee, it's fun. Join me on this journey of wibbly-wobbly randomness, tangentialness stuff. Just like we're having now. Yeah, this is one of the worst tangents, isn't it? So let's move on. This is where Creep Tobias starts to acquire the Harris hawk. Tobias then enters full David mode, having taken the acquiring into his own hands, and absolutely slams Jake for asking a pretty simple question.
Tobias.
What?
That disc that Elfangor tried to give you, do you have any idea where you might have dropped it?
I didn't drop it.
At this point, Jake should be thinking, why is this Tobias character being so odd? Why is he snapping at me? Did you know where he dropped that disc? I don't know where he dropped the bloody disc, why are you asking? Jake could be like, this guy is a bit on edge. He hasn't eaten his Weetabix this morning. You know what? I think he looks a bit like a David sort of guy. No joke though, Tobias like proper loses his pram with Jake asking him where the disc might have been, and it's just so out of place and strange, and not according to his character at all, from the books anyway. In fact, it's so snappy and so weird that it feels jarring that the Animorphs just don't care. Tobias just saunters back into the group and they carry on talking as if nothing's happened. Surely, the way Tobias snapped at Jake then should be a point of discussion. We then get a little bit of instruction on how thought speech works. So, Cassie comes in as a horse, talks privately to Rachel. Marco then says,
No, she's lost.
which leads to believe that she was talking privately, and then she speaks openly, including Jake and Marco, and they have that moment of, oh, actually, this is Cassie in horse morph. The problem here is, Cassie has clearly practiced this. So, who she practiced it with? Am I wrong? Because this is the first time we've been introduced to this whole thought speeches like email. You can send it to one person or you can send it to many people. And Cassie is clearly using it in the knowledge of how it's used, and the others aren't aware of how it's used. So who's Cassie practiced it with? Maybe Tobias, the sneaky son of a gun. We then get a scene of Cassie demorphing from the horse, which isn't as good as the dog morphing scene. It's not the worst of the series, but it's not great, honestly. And in the midst of it, there are moans and groans from the Animorphs at their disgust. Remember how in the book series, the morphing process was this disgusting, horrible, horrible thing. And this is the first time where we get that. This is a very expositional scene where we get all this stuff getting introduced to us. But the problem with this part is, apart from Rachel, who goes, once, it's all Marco making these noises. And by the end of it, he's the only one who looks slightly perturbed. It's just him carrying this scene of them being sickened by the morphing process. And this is where we see a problem with the directing, I believe, because many times the actors are told to act a certain way or make certain voice lines, but it just doesn't seem like they've been given direction. So Marco's disgust just doesn't seem very genuine. And he is probably one of the better actors of the group, so the fact that he's struggling to carry this means it probably wasn't directed very well. They try to make it seem as if it's the sickening, disgusting thing, and they just don't sell it to me, honestly. It just doesn't work. Is that a budget thing? Probably, because, yeah, without actually seeing... I mean, look at the Chris Ryan graphic novels. You can see how disgusting it is. And that alone carries most of the weight of this concept. And because the TV series can't do that, it just doesn't really work. Rachel then morphs a cat in what is a much better morphing sequence, I would say. In the background to Rachel's morph, we have Cassie trying to encourage her, but all it ends up being is creepy little yes, yes. In the background, looks sort of like, almost like a golem thing going on. Once again, Marco carries the repulsed side of it, but is very weak. Since we're going through all the animals to use their morphing abilities scene, it's down to Marco next. And there's quite a few ups and downs in this particular scene now. Marco refuses and says a very bizarre line.
You don't even know what reality is.
You don't even know what reality is. I don't really know what to say about that line. It just doesn't seem right. We also get a couple of slurs from Marco in here. Don't get me wrong, he's a great actor, but the way he says Andalite here, it's very Joe Biden.
You saw what happened to that Andalite.
True international effort to pressure.
Marco then explains in a very expositional way that his mother died, and he's angry at the other animals because they have perfect families. Even Tobias, who he doesn't know about, and who he doesn't realise doesn't know his parents. So, way to go, Marco. To be fair, all jokes aside, this is actually a very good scene, and it sets up Marco's relationship with his father, which is, I'm not exaggerating now, probably one of the best parts of the Animorphs TV show, and we'll see a little bit of that later on. We also get great character interactions, held mostly by Boris Cabrera, as to be expected. And we also get the whole I dare you line bit, where Marco says he's not doing something when he starts to morph the rat. And then Jake simply just said,
I dare you. Yeah, stupid rat.
And Marco, being Jake's Bezzy, his banter buddy, cannot refuse at that point. But before he does that rat morph, he's given the choice of which animal he can morph.
We have our medium-sized mammals. And we have our cuter ones.
Cuter ones. And she looks at the llama. I work at a place that has alpacas. And I walk past those alpacas every day. And you know what I see? I mean, Cassie, you were looking at goats and a pig. Compare those to an alpaca or a llama, which, let's face it, have basically the same face. I think your idea of what is cute is rather skewed, but then again, you are the devil incarnate. So Marco chooses the rat for two reasons. One, because he's apparently always wanted a rat, which was never mentioned in the books and just seems to be thrown in there. And two, because it's smaller, because Marco is using logical brain. Smaller means not as bad, but he quickly finds out that that's not necessarily the case.
What? Am I a rat?
I'd say you were a rat man.
We see definitively at this point that Cassie has become the animal morphing expert. This is quite similar in the books, how she was a bit Mary Sue at the start, but I think it's ramped up to 11 here in the TV series, where she's basically telling the Animorphs how to do this thing at this point. And she wasn't even the first to morph. We've only seen her morph the horse so far, and we didn't even see anything apart from her demorphing from it. And yet suddenly she's telling all the Animorphs, now you have acquired in a very robot Sam sort of voice, you have now acquired the rat. You must now morph it. And she's given it all that, which just seems very chucked in there without any explanation. unless you read the books, in which case the TV show just expects you to understand that Cassie is Dr. Morph Expert number 1. Marco then finishes his rat morph, which isn't particularly spectacular, but it's not the worst either. And then we have a problem. We got a rat and a cat.
Control, Rachel. Control
And
the animal mind.
Rachel, being not in control of the morph, starts to chase down Marco in his rat morph. So of course, Jake and Cassie and Tobias launch into the action, scramble to grab Marco, but they can't control Rachel, who starts clawing at Cassie's hands as she's trying to pull Marco away, and Tobias is calling the ambulance because Jake is now bleeding because he's hit his head on the side of the wooden barn, and Marco finds just in time a hole in the wall to crawl into, and he crawls up into the sides of the barn, but then he gets stuck and he tries to demorph, but because he's getting bigger, he gets clamped in there and they have to try to find a way to save him. But then Rachel, just in time, regains control of her morph and she demorphs from Cat, and because she's Rachel, she finds the elephant next door, acquires its DNA, morphs it, and then smashes the barn down, releasing Marco from his thing just as the ambulance comes and takes Jake away. He ends up in hospital, but you know what? Everybody gets saved. End of the episode. 8 out of 10. Oh wait, no, that's not what happens.
Control, Rachel. Control the animal mind.
Control. You can't eat Marco.
You guys, you have to control the animal brain.
Instead, they just calmly insist, Rachel, please, don't kill Marco. And then once again, Marco is suffering from bad director because he's told to say, run, 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 as if he's running for his life. And this is how he delivers the lines.
Run, 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 run.
You know, if it were me, okay, and I was told, right, the direction is you're being chased down by a cat and you're crawling back into a cage and your lines are run, run, run. Am I going to go to the microphone, run, run, run? Or am I going to go, run, run, run? Maybe not like that. But something a bit more dramatic, please. They then proceed to demorph, but Marco is demorphed within the rat cage. And instead of it being a traumatic event where his body's getting squeezed in by the plastic, no, it just breaks and he's got the wheel on his head. I do appreciate it for the little bit of comedy there. They saved it rather than him just appearing. They made something of it. Fair enough. They then start to say how they've all done it, and then remember that Tobias exists, but don't look at him, they just talk about him. And then they realise that Tobias is gone. Tobias has disappeared. And this is the point where you'd say he's not trustworthy at all. He's gone, he's just seen you morphing, and he's vanished into thin air. And you've only known him for a day, you don't know this kid, and all he's ever done is act weirdly around animals. I mean, what more can you say about the guy? I think what's happened here is the people who have written down what happens in the TV series were told the basic stereotypes of the characters, okay? So Marco is the one that says all the jokes, but is also reticent to do it. Jake is the leader type. Tobias is the weird kid. That's probably what they got sent. Tobias is the weird loner kid. And they probably took that completely the wrong way. Because that's what I'm feeling here. Because this isn't what Tobias would do. He was the one in the books who was saying, we've got to do this, we've got to do this. He was the first to morph. He was straight in there. He was the one probably most eager to be involved with the team. Here is the complete opposite. And it's just not Tobias. This is David now. If I was watching this for the first time, with the amount of Animorphs knowledge I have now, I'll be like, have they put David in the show instead of Tobias? Obviously it's not, and this doesn't last forever. In fact, I think this is the last episode where he does do all this weird stuff. But it's just so out of character for book Tobias. Marco makes a very good point about Tobias.
Just met the guy last night. For all we know, he could be working for the Yerks right now.
Turns out there are 3 Tobiases hidden behind various trees, looking at the Animorphs. Then we get some expositional dialogue about Tobias and the fact that he hasn't got his parents, even though a couple of minutes ago Marco was saying he was the only one who didn't have a perfect family. We then get the part in the show where the white male character is just chosen to be the leader because he's the leader.
So, what should we do?
Yeah. What should we do, oh great leader? Since when am I the leader?
You just are.
Try doing that in 2024. To be fair, it's the same in the books as well. Why is Jake the leader? Just because. Why? Well... And finally we show Tobias in a panic seeing the Animorphs walk away, and he runs off. Not adding suspicion at all. No, not at all. We then get 2 scenes in a row of Animorphs' family life. The first being Rachel and her little sister. Singular little sister, because apparently the other one exploded or something. And then after that we have Marco and his father. So we start off with Rachel and her little sister. If we take these scenes as both trying to achieve the same purpose in developing these characters and how they interact with their families, then we can clearly see how much effort has gone into each character. Because Rachel's scene is a lot shorter. She doesn't really say anything. It's almost as if she's bitter that in the last episode nobody ever answered her questions. So she takes it out on her little sister by never answering her questions.
Where are you going? What's wrong with it?
That's great character development. Question, no response. Just walks off. Everything about this scene as well just seems so ham-fisted and on the nose. How do we know that this is Rachel's little sister?
I don't know. I guess because you're my little sister.
She also gives this necklace to her sister. Do we ever see it again? I can't remember. If I do see it again, then colour me surprised. It's just trying to give across this message of she cares about her family because she gives this random necklace to her little sister. Is this trying to make us think that Rachel thinks she might die soon, so she's giving her little sister this random necklace? I don't know. That's the only thing I sort of get from it. It truly does give the feeling that Rachel is giving her this thing because she thinks she might die soon. Also because when asked, where are you going, she doesn't answer, she just hugs her little sister. But then she's also laughing and joking and smiling, and it really doesn't give the feel that she's about to die, and of course she doesn't die. So it just comes across as needless and expositional and, yeah, ham-fisted, trying to make you connect to this character when there's actually nothing there. It's just, you're told, care about this character. Why should we care about this character? Oh, I don't know. She cares about her sister. Why does she care about her sister? Because she's her little sister. My favourite part, though, is when the little sister asks, what's wrong with it? As if saying, if Rachel ever gives you something, there's something wrong with it. Which doesn't paint Rachel in a very good light, does it? If I was to say, here, have this Duracell battery charger, and somebody were to immediately think, hold on, he's given me this, there's got to be something wrong with it, then that doesn't paint you as a very trustworthy fellow, does it? What this tells me is that Rachel is being unusually generous to her little sister, even though she's not normally. Which again plays into the idea of she thinks she might be about to die or lose her sister.
Rachel?
But the fact that she's so jovial while doing it all, it just loses all effect that I think it's meant to be given. And of course, we're done with it. Let's move on to the much better scene of Marco and his father. This scene is done so much better. It's not ham-fisted, it's natural, it flows, the acting is better. Everything about it is so good, and it also hits those emotional heartstrings when Marco leaves with Jake, leaving his father behind. It's just amazing how these scenes have been just chucked into the middle of the episode, side by side, and just the sheer amount of difference. And it all comes because Marco's character feels natural in this show, whereas Rachel's feels like it's just been shoved in, like you're told, this has to be Rachel's character, rather than Marco's character being, this is him, just throw him into the scene and let him be Marco. Rachel's is more, make it look as if she cares about her little sister, but also that she doesn't really. Yeah. Those two scenes side by side are really quite telling about how much effort went into the characters for the TV series. Even this part here, where Marco's father, Peter, I think he might have a different name in this series actually, he's all laughing and joking with Marco, but then as soon as the door is knocked, it changes, snap. And he looks nervous, anxious. And it suits his book character, but also, without saying a word, you can understand the flow of his character here and how it works with Marco. And we know that his mother, his wife, is dead, but he doesn't need to outwardly say, you remember, Marco, when your mother died? That makes me so nervous and anxious. No, he doesn't need to do that. Just on the strength of his acting and the direction alone, you can tell. And that's why the scene is so much better. And I think every scene with Marco and his dad in this show is top-notch. And we'll go through them each as they come along. Oh yeah, by the way, his name is Jeremy, because Jake just said it. Not Jarahami, Jeremy. Marco's dad, yeah. Book series readers will know what I'm saying there. I hope. Just something as simple as Jeremy in the TV series saying, we've got Invasion of the Body Snatchers tonight, you need to show me how to work the VCR. Marco says, you're an engineer, you should do that. It might seem as a ham-fisted way to explain that he's an engineer, but it adds something more subtle than that, which is Jeremy wants Marco to stay. And so he's tried to just very subtly say, I want you to stay with me. You know, it's that unspoken stuff that you're feeling there, that you don't get in the other scenes. We're given an idea of how inattentive the controllers at the construction site are as we enter the construction site scene. Cassie and Rachel are there waiting for the other animals to arrive. Chapman shows up as well, because why wouldn't he? Chapman points out this massive Hork-Bajir footprint that hasn't been filled in. Tobias and Marco arrive. They clarify that nobody has still seen Tobias. And Jake tells Rachel to go in there, morph cat, and find the disc. And once again, Marco is the one that has to put across the idea of, oh, watching a morph is sickening, in a very ham-fisted and not directed very well sort of way. And then the sound effect of the cat is so jarring.
This is getting easier.
Rachel traverses through the legs of the workers, and not one of them points out the fact that there's a cat walking amidst them. And then within seconds, she finds the Andalite disc sticking up out of the ground. Half of it is sticking up out of the ground. You'd say, actually, the biggest chunk of it is sticking up out of the ground, right beside these workers, who are so inattentive that apparently they didn't see it. But that was set up by the fact that they also didn't see the Hork-Bajir footprint. So what the message is trying to say is that these fumbling, bumbling controllers are more than just fumbling, bumbling controllers. They're actually blind. And not joking sort of blind. They do actually seem to be visually impaired. But not only the regular fumbling, bumbling controllers, but Chapman himself. And I'm not sure if you'll be able to see it clearly if I zoom it up because the resolution's not great. He stands right over it. It's betwixt his feet. Right there, sticking up halfway out of the ground. But not only that, but here you can see it. It doesn't stand out completely, but it stands out enough. There's clearly an object there on the floor. Right there, you see it. And he stands atop of it. How has nobody, even if they're not very attentive, how have they not seen that? How? How have they not seen it? There's also the cat right by Chapman here. But apparently, well, Chapman is looking in that direction. He's looking in the direction of the cat. There's the cat. The object is down here. There. Right there. These two things right in his line of sight. And nothing. Just nothing registers. There's Rachel standing between his legs. Then runs off. It's great TV, isn't it? They then spring into action. Then Chapman says...
Search the entire area.
At this point is when he says that. Just as he's standing above the very thing that he seems to be after. And then Marco somehow accessed the sound man's studio, because in his little CD boombox player thing, he plays Elfangel's ship sound. At what point did he go out and buy the CD of Animorphs sound effects? Remember, this is the day after. They've been in school, they've been at the barn, and now they're at a construction site. Where did he get this CD from that apparently has the sound of an Andalite fighter / slightly different pitched Hawk Bajir? How did he get that? And how has he got it on the stereo? And how do they hear it from how far he should be away, seemingly? Chapman and the Fumble Bumblers then come to investigate. Then from underneath the trailer they see a pair of 4 blue horse-like legs. Chapman then tells his fumbling bumbling sidekicks to follow the Andalite, but we never actually see them follow. So we can just assume that they stand there for a little while just to give Cassie a bit of breathing room, you know, a bit of a head start. Because they never find her, even though she's just behind this trailer, which doesn't appear to have anything in front of or behind it. So how are they going to lose that unless they just don't obey Chapman and stand there doing nothing? And then Jake comes to dig up the disc. There's a problem here. It takes him a good 10 seconds, 20 seconds, somewhere between that, to dig up the disc, even though earlier it was halfway stuck up out of the ground. The biggest, bulkiest bit was stuck out, so obvious that Rachel didn't even need to put any effort into finding the bloody thing. And now it seems to be completely buried. Now, after a brief picnic, the controllers seem to finally give chase to Cassie, who's probably long gone by this point, and also Chapman loses interest. Oh, we throw in an expositional line about telling Visser 3 too.
I have to tell Visser 3.
We know why Jake had to dig the disc out, and it's not for story reasons, it's purely for dramatic tension reasons. Because by the time Chapman comes back, Jake has only just managed to dig this disc out. And then, because Jake is a complete wazzock, he runs into the very same pipe that he ran into yesterday and discovered to be a dead end. And no, it wasn't like Rachel led him. Rachel actually said, no, not that way. But Jake, in his blundering buffoonery, goes into exactly, and it is exactly the same pipe. Here's the evidence.
Oh, great.
He goes into exactly the same pipe to find, oh, it's still a dead end. What a shock, everybody. Chapman then blocks off the entrance, only to immediately be attacked by a Harris hawk falling out of the sky. Is it a bird? Is it a plane? No, it's actually a bird. The first thing you suggested. When Tobias attacks Chapman, he falls over like a complete beta male. If I ever say that again, please do shoot me. I've told you that before. So you have permission to shoot me now. Please nobody take that seriously. I know some of you would. You can shoot me with poetry. Yes, I'll permit that. You can shoot your poetry right at me. Come on, bring it. I can take it. I can take your strongest haikus. Yeah, Chapman falls down, and the block that he put up also falls down, allowing Jake and Rachel to make their grand escape. Jake says that they have to run to the woods because there's controllers all over the place, as we get a long shot of a completely empty construction site. And then, of course, Cassie emerges from somewhere, having not been pursued by the controllers at all. And this is the first time we get to see speed morphing in action. What speed morphing, you might ask? I covered it when I originally watched the series. It's when the morph happens like bang, split second, you're morphed and now you're demorphed. None of those fumbling, bumbling controllers saw Cassie go around the corner. Are you kidding me? Also, they don't seem very alert, and they've clearly not spread out. They're just, I think they're playing a silly buggers with Chapman here. I think they don't like him very much. They've clearly dropped tools. It's not a very intimidating force, is it, really, when the controllers doing this job just clearly cannot be bothered. They can't be asked to do this.
I think we lost him.
That's what I mean by quick speed morph. The Animorphs reunite in the forest and discuss how well the plan went, and it went well. It relied a lot on the controllers being complete fumble-bumblers, which we know that they are, hence the nickname. But it worked. And then Tobias makes his grand return. What is the explanation for Tobias's odd behaviour and sudden disappearance? Let's find out.
Why did you disappear? Why didn't you tell us you'd acquired the hawk?
I don't know.
We were all scared.
Yeah, but I guess I was a bit scared that maybe I'd like it too much.
That's your excuse? You were scared you might like it too much? At this point, how do you trust this guy? How? Jake, you've now been officially assigned the leader because of who you are, apparently.
Straight white man.
Do you not look at Tobias and say, well, we cannot trust this guy. We don't know him. He ran off without telling anybody where he was going. Yeah, granted, he saved us, but remember in the book series when David saved the Animorphs as well? They didn't grant him the benefit of the doubt there, did they? But yeah, Tobias saved them, but what's his excuse for leaving? Oh, I was a bit scared. How do you trust that? What happens next time he's scared? And he just vanishes on you. What do? You can't trust that. But no, they give him all big congratulations and hoorah and huzzah. No. It just doesn't work like that, I'm afraid. Even start of book series Animorphs probably wouldn't behave like that. It's too nicey-nicey. It doesn't flow right. The reason that they just accept it is because he's Tobias. And we all know that Tobias is one of the good guys because he's the good guys in the book. He's one of the good guys in the book, so they'll just be lenient on him. But no, you've got to justify it within your own product. It's not justified. How do I explain this better? Basically, Tobias cannot be trusted at this point, and yet they do, because he's Tobias. And in the book series, he's the good guy, so they can trust him. That's not how this should work. But it is proper David territory, isn't it? What do we know about Tobias? Let's finish it off first and discuss him. Anyway, the Animorphs now have this mysterious disc, and we will find out eventually in further episodes what this thing is all about, but it just looks like a MacGuffin gadget gizmo. We'll call it that. So they say that tomorrow they're going to try it out on a computer, thinking that alien technology will work on computers. To be fair, it's the 90s and they're teenagers, so any stupid idea could probably be plausible in this situation. I do love that last interaction where they say, well, now it's time to do my homework, which is faithful to the books, and I think it's just done so well here. It's a really good interaction to finish off this episode. We then get Jake's final ending monologue, and it starts off in the most bizarre fashion because he says,
My name is Jake, but I guess that doesn't matter anymore.
Why? Why doesn't your name matter anymore? What's that got to do with anything? I mean, theoretically, no. Individual people's names don't matter in regards to battles or wars, but it's not even relevant. Do you know what I'm saying? Okay, yeah, your name's Jake, that doesn't matter, but does it matter if your name's Jake on the motorway? Does it matter that your name is Jake at Christmas? Not technically, but I mean, basically, why even bother saying that? In the grand scheme of the universe, nobody's name matters. My name could be Jessica. It's not, but does it matter? Not in the grander scheme of things, no. But nor does it need to be relevant. in the grander scheme of things. So why you bring it up? Why? Anyway, that brings the episode to an end. It's not as good as the first episode. It's very much exposition throughout this episode. Fumbling, bumbling controllers at the end. The plan was executed all right. The direction was up and down, hit and miss. The characters were the same. Characters like Rachel and Cassie were very cold and bland. Not much to them. Cassie is now the animal expert, but when she speaks like a robot when reciting her lines sometimes. Rachel feels like they're trying to force a character onto her, and it's not happening naturally. Tobias is a complete oddball. We'll get onto him again in a second. Jake is now the leader, because... but there's not much character to him either. The only one who's really developing character, and this is the same in the books to be fair, at this stage, is Marco. He is clearly the best character at this stage. And yeah, it was the same in the books. He had a lot of character at the start, whereas the others took time to develop. We'll see if the TV series is the same in that regard. Tobias's character is ruined. I think we can safely say already Tobias's character it's just been solid up beyond all recognition. How do they save it from this point? How? Because the foundation is wrong. The very foundations of his character. And it's summed up perfectly with the fact that they've got the wrong Hawk. In the same way they've got the wrong Hawk, they've got the wrong character. I'm sorry to say that I find it difficult to see his character being rescued over the course of this series as I delve into the depths of the Animorphs TV series. Let's take a look at what some of you people think. David N.T. Annan says a remake of this series with today's effects and quality of acting would be so good. And you know what? Possibly. Trumfit quotes, Marco, I can't do it. It's too scary and I'm literally a child, and if I die, my dad will lose his will to live. Jake, I dare you. Marco, say no more, fam. Yes, I freaking loved that bit, and I hope you did too. Caroline Dixon 4541. Haha, I love how an elephant just casually walked across the screen in the background at Cassie's place. I know, and it annoys me because it's a bloody tease. I'm going to go for newest first. Who's the newest? 3 weeks ago, Shadow the Grey Wolf. Tobias is literally me with birds every time I'm standing by one, especially raptors. The connection is real. I mean, fair enough. I feel the same about beer. Player Slayer 91. At 21:15, their table at Applebee's is ready. What's that referring to? Oh, I get it. It's one of those... Yes, I get it. One of those little doohickeys. I've had it a couple of times. You get a little buzzer that tells you when your table's ready. I like that comment. That's great. Anyway, if you want to, get ahead of the game, on episode 3, go in there and write your comments. I'm going to start doing this at the end of the episodes, looking at comments that people have left. And I'll probably go newest first, as I've just done. So if you want me to read out your comment, get in there, play it sneaky, throw in a comment. And it better not be something about my lack of hair. Okay, Medi? Better watch out, because I'm coming for you. Anyway, that's My Name is Jake Part 2. I hope you've enjoyed this review, and we will be back for the next one. Let's hope they rescue Tobias' character and carry on the quality. Thank you very much for watching. See you somewhere else in the Animorphs universe. Ta-ra! Join as a member, by the way. Early access to content. Do it now, or I'll get really angry and I'll stop being...